So for today, we are going to be using oil pastels to finish our cake drawing. So like I've said before, you can always use whatever supplies you have at home to finish these drawings. These art lesson videos that I do are just suggestions in terms of what supplies I recommend, but you can always use whatever you have at home. In fact, I encourage you to draw this again and again and use different supplies and compare and contrast and say, this looks pretty cool in colored pencil, it looks pretty cool in watercolor paint. What if I combine watercolor paint and oil pastel? There's ways to mix and match your art supplies and come up with something truly interesting and unique. So I encourage you to keep experimenting and having some fun. But for today, we're going to talk about oil pastels. And so before we get started, I want to talk about some of these important supplies. So this blue thing underneath this art lesson here is a mat. Now you can get these at the dollar store. You can get them at Michael's or Walmart or anywhere like that. It's just a piece of poster board, really. I just happen to get a lot of blue once upon a time. So it's great because it protects the table. You can accidentally make marks on there and it's no big deal. It's very important that you have those things. Also, you're going to notice that I have oil pastels and a black colored pencil. So there's a couple things I want to mention here. So these are Crayola. I recommend these. They're great. They have 28 colors. You don't have to get these, but I think they're wonderful. Just about any kind of oil pastel will work. But for now, I'm using the Crayola. So that's what I have there. You'll notice that I have a paper towel. We'll talk more about that later. It's not just for cleaning your fingers off, but it's also for mixing and blending. It's a great tool. The black colored pencil, this is a Prismacolor pencil, and this is a very, very black colored pencil. This is a great tool to use. If you don't use Sharpies and you want to draw with a black pencil, this is a great pencil to use. You can get them at Michael's. They're about $2 a pencil, but if you take care of them and just use them only for art class, then they last a really long time. So I'm going to be using that later. I'll explain more. And then I've got myself a pencil sharpener. So this is a manual pencil sharpener, and it is not for the oil pastels, by the way. Do not put your oil pastel in there. It's no good for it, but it's for sharpening your pencil. And I have a tray here to catch the shavings. That's what I have. That's what I recommend. Of course, this magnet, right? This is the old Arts Hub magnet. And if you would like one of these, just like this video, but also subscribe, share it with your friends, do all of those things, and then let me know. You got to let me know, folks. If you want a magnet, I will mail it to you with a personal thank you note, but you got to let me know either in class or by email or some way so that I know that you are going to get a magnet sent to you in the mail. So if you want a magnet, you know what to do. All right, guys, it is just about time to get started. This art lesson is so much fun. It's very, very simple, right? It doesn't look very complicated. Some weeks we'll draw something with lots of design and detail, and other weeks it's super simple. The really cool part of this lesson is in the coloring part. So I'm going to be doing a lot of explaining about layering and shading of colors. I'll do some of this video in time lapse, which means it's going to go really fast. That way it just makes it more fun to watch. And I'll do others like I'm doing it right now, other parts of the video, just sort of talking to you and giving you some tips and pointers about the tips and techniques and just things like that. So anyway, it's a lot of fun and I hope you enjoy it. I know I do. All right, guys, I am going to get started in just a second here. I'll be right back. I've got to go grab some scrap paper. All right, I'm back. Anyone that knows me in my classes knows that I'm a huge fan of free draw paper, also scrap paper. This is just so you can test your colors. You can think about the color blending and choices you've got. And so I'm going to keep it handy nearby as well. So I'm going to get started and then I'm going to go into time lapse. So first, let's talk about some cake. You guys know all about cake, right? You've got different cake flavors. You have different frosting flavors. You've got different toppings. Now these are cherries. It could be any flavor cake. It could be any kind of frosting, any kind of fruit. It could be cookies instead of cherries. That's what I said. If you draw this again and again, you can change it up each time. It's a lot of fun. But for today, I'm going to make this cake have sort of a pinkish, I think a strawberry cake sounds really delicious. So let me just pull these over here and let's talk about the color choices. So obviously I have pink. Yep, it's pretty obvious. But he also has this really nice color, Crayola calls this peach, but when you put them side by side, it's almost like a lighter pink. Also, of course, I'm gonna get some white out, and I've got a couple shades of red, right? So here I am, I'm gonna start building up some pink here in just a second. But if you look at that, that's a really good start. And so one thing that is fun to do is the shading. So I'm gonna just sort of set these right here kind of in order. And I'm gonna show you what I mean. So with an oil pastel, it's made with oil instead of wax. There is wax in crayons, right? Wax is harder than oil. It doesn't blend as well. So one of the wonderful, wonderful things about oil pastel is that you can blend the colors. And so I'm gonna show you a little bit right now about how that works. And so I'm just gonna kind of go over these a few minutes here just to show you what I'm talking about. So I have created something that looks pretty cool to me. And so it starts out with a dark color, it goes into a lighter red, it goes into a lighter red, which turns into a pink, and eventually that pink turns into a peachy tan and then turns into a white. And I'm just gonna rub it with my finger. I'm gonna go back and forth a few times, and I just want you to see how cool that is. It's really fun. It melts under the heat of your finger. It rubs into the paper. And if it gets on your fingers, it's no big deal. You can wash your hands later, don't worry about it. But it's just really fun, and it's a really neat way to create a flavor of a cake or ice cream. So like I said, I was thinking about strawberry. So I think I want to go with somewhere between these colors. I think this is sort of the tone that I really want to capture today. So I am going to, now that I've made a little experiment there, I'm going to start with some darker color on this side, because one of the things about this artist is that the artist that we were inspired by for this art lesson, his name is Wayne Thiebaud, and his style had a lot of really dramatic shadows in it. So I'm going to use this dark red, even though this is way darker than strawberry. That is my shadow color. I'm going to start layering in this light pink here. Do you see? I'm not too worried about overlapping with some other lines. I'm going to be using my black pencil in a little bit to make that look really cool. So I'm just going to put some pink on top of this reddish color here. It's already looking pretty great. So I'm going to bring that pink all the way to the edge. And when you put a lighter color over top of a darker color with oil pastel, it kind of blends it for you. You can see how nice that looks. I'm going to do that over here too. Now I'm going to take this sort of peachy color, and I'm going to get into this corner here with this lighter peachy color. And I am going to press down into this corner. But then I'm going to bring this peachy color all the way back into my shadow color. That is looking pretty awesome. I mean, I think it looks delicious, actually. I don't know about you, but whenever I do this art lesson, it always makes me want to eat cake. So, yummy, yummy. I love cake. Not everyone loves cake. The good news is if you don't like cake, you don't have to eat this because it's drawing. If you do like cake, you get to enjoy it because, well, it's your favorite thing. It's cake. So you notice how I tapped off those crumbs? I know sometimes people get all frustrated because of all the crumbs. That's what your handy-dandy poster board mat is all about. So there you go. That looks pretty good already. I'm going to take my white, and I'm going to layer in some white here in these layers because this is frosting. You know, frosting is in between these layers. So I'm pressing pretty hard here, but it's okay if it's not pure white. It's going to get whiter and whiter. Whoops. That happens with oil pastels, guys, because they're soft, but don't worry. They still work perfectly good. If you accidentally break your pastels like I just did, it's no problem. All right. See all those crumbs? Just like a real cake, guys. Lots of crumbs. So I think that looks pretty great, but what I want to show you before I go into time lapse is this is what the pencil is for. Check this out, guys. The pencil does an amazing job of making your black lines stand out again. And so all you have to do is take your time. You always have to take your time with art. Don't rush, but follow these lines that you drew. And when you do that, you're going to make them stand out again. Now, the black pencil is a very important part of this lesson today. We're going to use it every step of the way. All right, guys, that is the beginning of how to use the oil pastels. I'm going to go into time lapse now, but I think you got the idea. And it's just going to be lots of fun. All right, here we go. Well, guys, you can see that that was a lot of work, and you can see that it looks pretty cool. I mean, it really does look pretty cool. I chose colors that I thought would be fun and make it stand out. And it's definitely an interesting drawing, and it took me quite a good long time. And as you notice, when you do this yourself, you'll say, wow, that takes a lot more effort than I thought it would. But I just want you to know, guys, as much effort as it is to color with oil pastel, it is so worth it. It's so beautiful, but it is not really done unless you get going with your black colored pencil here. So I'm just going to show you a little bit. Again, I know I did in the very beginning with the center of the cake, but this cake is about the shading, but it's also about the lines. And so what I want you to do is just take your time. Sometimes my students get going with this and they do it really fast and they're not careful and they don't pay attention to their lines. And something that was, has the potential to be really, really, really cool ends up just being kind of messy. So I'm going to ask you guys to please give yourself a time to just get these things done. It's great for drawing these cherry stems again. It is worth it, guys. So I'm going to do this in time lapse. I'll come back and do a quick conclusion before I wrap it up. But you'll see before the very end why the black colored pencil is so important. Here we go. Well, guys, that is it for this drawing today. As you can see, I went back with my white oil pastel and I made these little white spots on the cherry stick out again. Sometimes you have to just kind of work things over a couple times. Like you have to go back and trace and add a little more color. You notice probably that I put some white around some of these edges. You can always just go back and touch things up. Oil pastel is great that way. You can always change it up a little bit. If you need to fix something, if you need to add something, oil pastel is very flexible. So that's one of the reasons why it's so much fun to work with. All right, guys, the last thing is important. Make sure your name is on here somewhere. Now, when you have a black colored pencil and you have oil pastel, you can sign it on the front, right? So I am going to put my name right here on the plate today. I'm going to get my pencil to work right first. I'm going to put my name right here on the plate today. I'm going to put my initials and the year 2021. You can put it wherever you want to. A lot of kids tend to want to write it right across the top. I recommend you always put it somewhere in the bottom right corner somewhere or the bottom left corner, but usually the bottom right corner. You don't have to write your entire name out. You can put your initials. You can always put your name on the back, right? And that is always a good idea as well. So sometimes you might even want to do both. All right, guys, that's it for today. I hope you had fun. I know I did. This cake looks delicious. I probably am going to have to get some cake this week and enjoy it. All right, thanks so much for watching. I'll see you next time.